From today, this is your home, so do your best alone. Due to the after effects of the accident, I lost my sight and became dependent on my family for support. One day, I was taken in a car by Jimmy, and suddenly I was dropped off and locked in a house. Outside the door, Jimmy's evil laughter echoed. My name is Brina, I'm 28 years old, and I work hard as a salesperson for a major company. My husband Jimmy, 27 years old, who is 1 year younger than me, worked at a client company. We met when I went to a company for a business deal, and Jimmy was the person in charge. Jimmy's father is the president of that company. And Jimmy, as the next president, holds a higher position with decision-making authority, despite being younger than me. After successfully concluding the deal, as I was about to leave, Jimmy confessed that he fell in love with me at first sight and aggressively pursued me. At first, I was rejecting Jimmy's approaches because he was my client. But through text exchanges and dinners, I gradually found myself attracted to Jimmy, who was reliable and had a strong core. After we started dating, our relationship deepened smoothly, and a year later, Jimmy proposed to me. Jimmy had become someone irreplaceable to me, so I decided to marry him. With the marriage, I quit my company and transferred to Jimmy's company. This was because Jimmy's father, Roland, the president of the client company, had always liked me and had treated me well even after we started dating. And he scouted me, saying, "If you got married to Jimmy, please join us." And he scouted me, saying, "If you got married to Jimmy, please join us." I was grateful for the offer and accepted it, securing a good position at the new company. As a working wife, I was very busy with work and household chores, but Jimmy, being a supportive husband, believed in sharing household responsibilities. I led a fulfilling life despite being busy. Jimmy and I lived in an apartment about a 10-minute drive away from his parents' house. Not only Roland but also my mother-in-law, Cereza, was a very kind person, and we got along very well, going camping together whenever we had time. One day, on my way home from work, Cereza asked me to do some shopping, which I gladly accepted. As I was driving home after buying the items, I was suddenly hit by a strong impact and lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness, I found that my vision was completely dark even though my eyes were open. A man's voice explained the situation in front of me. "Brina, are you awake? Please stay calm and listen, I'm a doctor. You were involved in a car accident and were brought to this hospital unconscious." I told the doctor that I couldn't see anything and my vision was dark. He explained that my temporary loss of vision was due to the shock of the accident and that it would probably return in about 2 months. At first, I was confused by the doctor's explanation, but I gradually accepted it and calmed down when my in-laws visited me at the hospital. They were very worried, especially Cereza, who blamed herself and apologized to me because she is the one who asked me to do some shopping. I comforted Cereza, assuring her that my vision loss was temporary and that there were no other major issues. Although Jimmy was too busy to visit, he was very worried and sent me daily voice messages and calls since I couldn't read texts. "Brina, are you okay? I can't visit because of work, but I'm always thinking about you." Supported by Jimmy's warm words, I managed to stay strong and not succumb to the fear of losing my sight. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital, and my life with the support of Jimmy and my in-laws began. During the day, Cereza would come over every morning before Jimmy went to work, and she would support me in various ways until he returned. Given the obligations at her own home, she stayed until 8 p.m., which was more than enough. However, even though it wasn't a busy season, Jimmy's return time kept getting later, and he often didn't make it back by 8 p.m. Moreover, even after coming home, he would stay in another room, constantly working on something. If I needed help, I would call him and he would come, but as soon as he was done, he would quickly leave me again. With my vision dark and my anxiety growing, I asked him, "Hey, you haven't been home much lately. Are you busy?" In an irritated voice. "I'm doing your sales job in addition to my own," he replied. Jimmy had to handle work for both of us, which meant overtime wasn't enough, and he had to continue working even after coming home. Hearing that, all I could do was thank him, considering I was on sick leave. After that conversation, the frequency of our conversation gradually lessened. When I talked to Cereza about it, she said, "That's Roland's fault for distributing the work like that," and promised to talk to him. She told me not to worry when I apologized repeatedly, which only made me feel more grateful and determined to repay her kindness someday. One day, Jimmy approached me and said he wanted my advice about work. "Hey, I had this issue at work. What do you think I should do?" Feeling happy that Jimmy was finally asking for my help, I listened carefully and responded kindly. His voice seemed brighter, and I was delighted to have been able to meet his expectations. The next day, Jimmy told me he had to work on the weekend, so I decided to spend the day at my in-laws' house. Although it's only a 10-minute drive, it was a significant burden for her to continue the routine of coming early in the morning to support someone else's household and returning home at night. Cereza would come every day to support, as she thought I would be anxious spending a whole day at my in-laws' house. So, when she said that she wanted me to come if possible, I immediately agreed. I felt bad about always being taken care of and hoped to reduce Roland's workload, and I agreed to go with Jimmy. Jimmy was in an especially good mood as he drove, and it felt like the 10 minutes felt like a second. However, when he said it hadn't even been 5 minutes, I realized that being unable to see made it hard to gauge the passage of time. After 20 and then 30 minutes, I asked him again, and finally, the car stopped. He helped me out of the car, but the ground felt different from usual. There was a strong scent of greenery, but my in-laws' house didn't have that many plants or flowers. Most notably, I couldn't hear the voices of my in-laws, which made me feel uneasy. Just as I was about to call out to Jimmy, he said, "From today, this is your home. Do your best." And I heard the door slam shut loudly. "Wait!" I fell to my knees, then stood up and turned around, extending my hands. Shuffling my feet, I slowly moved until I reached a large door. Whether I pushed, pulled, or tried to slide it sideways, it didn't budge at all. Desperately, I pounded on the door, and I could hear Jimmy's laughter from outside. "This is an empty house deep in the mountains where no one lives. Oh, and I locked the front door for you, so no animals will get in. Feel free to relax." I was stunned into silence by Jimmy's words. Hearing footsteps and the sound of a car door, I panicked and shouted as loudly as I could. "Wait! Don't go! Please, I'm begging you!" No matter how frantically I pounded on the door, there was no response. Then I heard the car engine start and quickly fade away. I had been abandoned in the mountains. Fear slowly crept up on me as I realized this. I reached into the pocket of my pants only to find that I didn't have my smartphone or anything else. Everything was in my bag, which I had given to Jimmy to carry. Even though I knew I could unlock the door from the inside, the thought of what would happen afterward filled me with anxiety. If this really was deep in the mountains, I would only get lost if I went outside. I couldn't imagine there being a public phone in the mountains, and even if there was, I wouldn't be able to find it. No matter how much I thought about what to do, there was no solution. What if only I had my smartphone? What if only I could see? What if only someone was here with me? As these what-ifs filled my mind, I reached my breaking point. "Is anybody there? Please, help me!" Maybe this wasn't really deep in the mountains and someone was just outside. Clinging to that faint hope, I continued to pound on the door and scream for help. There might be a landline phone inside the house, but since it was an empty house, it might not be connected. And if I went looking for it and couldn't find my way back to the front door, it would be even worse. That's why I couldn't move carelessly. How many hours had passed? We had left early in the morning, but it felt like ages had gone by. My throat was painfully dry from all the shouting and crying. My hands hurt just from having pounded on the door so much. Just then, I heard the sound of the front door unlocking. Realizing this might be my only chance to get out, I summoned the last of my strength and shouted, "Someone! Please, help me!" The next day, when Jimmy arrived at the office, he found Roland and 4 men standing in his way. "What's going on, Dad? And who are these people?" "They're police officers." "You know why they're here, don't you?" Jimmy's face twitched as he looked at the officers. "I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, nothing that would involve the police." "Are you serious, you foolish son?" Roland's furious voice made Jimmy involuntarily step back. One of the officers stepped forward to close the distance. "Your wife was found inside my house. She said her husband abandoned her there. Do you seriously think leaving your blind wife alone in a deserted house isn't a crime?" Jimmy looked at the man with a puzzled expression. "You left Brina in Morris's house. That house used to belong to his parents, and now Maurice occasionally returns to maintain it. He happened to come back yesterday." As it turned out, the sound I had heard was Maurice unlocking the house. Surprised by the sound of someone's voice in what he believed to be an empty house, Maurice had quickly unlocked the front door. He discovered I was locked inside with a padlock on the door. Seeing my condition, Maurice rushed me to the hospital, learned from me that Jimmy had abandoned and locked me up, and then reported it to the police. Since I managed to contact Cereza, Roland was informed as well. Unable to reach Jimmy, they waited for him to show up at work this morning. "I was told by your wife that you abandoned her at Morris's house. Is that not true?" "It's not true. She disappeared somewhere yesterday morning, and I couldn't find her. If your blind wife went missing, you'd be more frantic. You wouldn't calmly show up at work after a whole day." Roland, seething with anger, watched as Jimmy turned pale and looked around nervously. Jimmy muttered under his breath, "There's no evidence." Maurice responded calmly, "Actually, there is evidence. We have security cameras installed at my house. The footage clearly shows you pushing your wife into the house." Sweat started to form on Jimmy's forehead as he changed his stance, folding his arms and glaring defiantly at them. "Come to think of it, I might have left my wife there. But is that really so wrong? This is a private matter between husband and wife. The police shouldn't interfere." Such a foolish statement was quietly dismissed by the officer. "First of all, you trespassed on someone else's property, which is breaking and entering. And abandoning a spouse who cannot see may be classified as neglect of a dependent." Understanding the gravity of the situation, Jimmy started to panic. He tried to run but was immediately restrained by the officers. They informed him that they would take him to the station for questioning. Jimmy resisted violently, striking the officers and kicking the patrol car, leading to his arrest. From the hospital where I was undergoing observation and at my in-laws' house, I heard from Cereza about Jimmy's behavior. Apparently, he showed no signs of remorse. During the interrogation, Jimmy confessed that his actions were driven by his frustration at my higher recognition compared to his. Initially, Jimmy had been genuinely happy to have me working at Roland's company. However, as I gained more respect and trust from Roland and other employees, he began to feel marginalized. "I'm the son. I'm supposed to be the next president." Jimmy harbored resentment as he took on more responsibilities during my leave, aiming to boost his image as both a kind husband and a competent employee. Yet, overwhelmed by the workload, he felt stressed by having a dependent wife at home. Apparently, he had been going out drinking without concern during those days. Even when he sought my advice for work-related issues, it felt humiliating to him. Gradually, he began to see me as an obstacle both as a wife and a colleague. Thus, Jimmy concocted a bizarre plan to abandon me in an isolated house, thinking the fear would make me more submissive to him. Roland explained that while Jimmy and Maurice worked at the same company, they were neither in the same department nor particularly close. The reason Jimmy had Maurice's house key was that he had stolen and duplicated it. Roland and Maurice had a strong relationship, and Maurice had shared his plans to leave the company to care for his parents. Maurice mentioned that he occasionally visited the house in the mountains, as his parents were reluctant to sell it. Jimmy overheard this and subsequently stole the key from Maurice's locker, duplicating it before returning the original. After Maurice moved with his parents, Jimmy began using the house as a personal retreat. Maurice discovered traces of someone being in the house during one of his visits, prompting him to install security cameras. He had recently returned to convince his parents to sell the house and sort through the remaining belongings, which led to him discovering me crying inside. Despite Jimmy's defiant attitude during police questioning, his crimes were serious. While it was unclear how long Jimmy intended to leave me, it seemed he planned to abandon me for several days. Considering he had gone to work as usual that day, he might have intended to check on me that night at the earliest. Had Maurice not arrived at the house in time, my blindness could have resulted in life-threatening consequences. Jimmy, who failed to grasp the severity of his actions, was almost certainly facing prison time. During the time Jimmy's trial was ongoing, I filed for divorce and requested compensation through a divorce lawsuit. With the help of a lawyer, the divorce was successfully finalized. Disgusted by Jimmy's actions, my in-laws decided to terminate his employment with immediate effect and sent him a letter in prison announcing that they were severing all ties with him. Afterwards, I regained my eyesight and moved to a town far away from where I used to live. My in-laws, concerned that Jimmy might return if they stayed at their old house, decided to move to the same town as me. They expressed deep regret for what had happened and assured me that I was free to live my life as I wished now that I was divorced. However, I was grateful to my in-laws and, having lost my own parents, I wanted to live close to them. They welcomed this decision, and now we live in close proximity to each other. Roland realized that relocating the company was not a viable solution. Even if they moved, anyone could find the new location through an internet search, so it would not ensure complete separation from Jimmy. Therefore, he decided to step down as CEO and pass the position to a capable non-family employee. Roland still occasionally visits the company and has started a new business venture he had been planning for some time. I was rehired by Roland's company and now enjoy a fulfilling life, engaged in new endeavors in my new home. Boomers ruin the taste of food. Go home. A woman dressed in a beautiful gown sneers as she splashes my mom with a hot toddy whiskey. My mom's arms and neck, drenched in whiskey, turn bright red. Maybe we should go home. My mom mutters a single phrase, stands up from her seat, gathers her belongings, and exits the private room at the restaurant. The woman who threw the whiskey at my mom laughs in an amusing manner, seemingly unaware that she has just stepped on a massive landmine. I hope she doesn't end up regretting it later. While sympathizing with my mom in my heart, I chase after her. My name is Jennifer, a 45-year-old nurse working at Williams General Hospital. I live with my slightly cheeky but adorable children and my kind husband. On this day, I I was rushing to my destination while checking the time on the watch strapped to my wrist. It was just past 7 p.m. Normally, I would still be at the hospital at this time. However, today is a special day for me, so I asked someone who was available to switch shifts with me. All right, at this pace, I should make it in time. As I turn the corner, careful not to bump into any passers-by, my destination store comes into view. Seeing it, my expression naturally softens. Today is the day we celebrate my mom, Betty's 70th birthday. Her actual birthday is still a ways off, but since we weren't sure if our schedules would align on the day of, we decided to celebrate today when both of our schedules matched up. I had been adjusting my schedule for the past few months in preparation for today and had carefully planned out how we would celebrate. My mom is not yet near the store. Relieved, I slow my pace and walk towards the store. Looks like she isn't here yet. That's good. I lost my dad in an accident when I was still in elementary school. Since then, my mom has been working hard to raise me well on her own while juggling her job and child-rearing. Even through the eyes of me as a child, my mom looked completely exhausted and painful right after losing dad. She always put on a brave face in front of me, which made it all the more so. Seeing my mom like that, I decided to pursue a career as a nurse. I wanted to become someone who could be there for like my mom, of course, but also for others who were carrying similar sorrows, even if only a little bit. That's what I thought. I hope she'll be happy. There are several gifts for her in the bag I have slung over my shoulder. As I head towards the store, imagining her reaction when she opens them, the couple walking in front of me catches my attention. They look to be in their early to mid-20s. I mean, Sarah looks seriously beautiful today, don't you think? Right? I wore it as a rehearsal for the wedding ceremony. I need to get a little used to wearing a dress, you know? They walk with their arms intertwined, their footsteps almost dancing. Seeing them from behind, they look so drunk that I almost think their footing is unsteady. The man is wearing a suit, while the girl called Sarah is wearing a beautiful dress. If she's having a wedding ceremony, she must be planning to wear the dress for the occasion. They seem to get along quite well, and I hope they stay on good terms forever. As I'm looking at the couple with a smile, Sarah turns around to look at me. Huh? What's with this old lady? Hey, Daniel, I think this person is glaring at me. With a cute face contorted in displeasure, she tells her boyfriend beside her. Then, the boyfriend who seems to be named Daniel turns around and glares at me. Huh? Hey, what's up? You got a problem? What? No, that's not it. It's just that she was so beautiful, I couldn't help but look. I'm sorry. Apparently, I was staring too much. I wasn't looking because I had a problem with them, but if I made them uncomfortable, I have to apologize for my rudeness. I sincerely apologized for giving them an impolite look. At that, Daniel immediately raises the corners of his mouth in a good mood, and Sarah puts one hand on her cheek, looking not entirely displeased, and laughs. Well, I can't be looking all tired and worn out like you, old woman. Yeah, totally. Don't compare you to my girlfriend, she's super young and cute. If you think I'm pretty, why don't you take care of your skin a bit? I can tell your skin is in bad shape even without bright lighting. Hearing their words, I immediately wanted to take back what I said just a little while ago. They may be cute on the outside, but they're not at all cute on the inside. But since I started this, I'll retreat without saying anything more. Without further engaging with the two who started flirting again without caring about people's eyes, I quietly move away from them, slip through the side, and hurry towards the front of the store. Geez, that was a horrible thing to say. I'm glad my mom wasn't here. Although I had an unexpected mishap, seeing the front of my destination store, my troubled heart quickly settles down. The place I chose today is a high-end restaurant that's often talked about on the internet and social media. This restaurant is so popular that it was very difficult to make a reservation. That's why I had to plan months in advance. This is it, right? Isn't this place way fancier than it looks on social media? Then, I hear the voice I heard earlier, right behind me. Turning around timidly, there they are, Daniel and Sarah, looking up at the restaurant excitedly, as expected. Fortunately, neither of them notice me, and they quickly go inside the restaurant. Seeing that, a sigh of relief naturally escapes my mouth. If possible, I'd rather not get involved with them anymore. Jennifer, Sorry, did you wait long? Oh, Mom. I just got here too. As I'm feeling frustrated, this time I hear a familiar voice. Turning around, I see my mom waving her hand and running up to me. I can't say anything about others, but my mom also looks quite terrible, not much better than me. We both just got off work, so it can't be helped, but her hair isn't even set and her clothes are a hastily put together simple suit. It's not a pretty look, to say the least. But she doesn't seem to care about that at all, and she's smiling happily anyway. Maybe it's because she ran all the way here, or maybe she's that happy, but her cheeks are slightly flushed. I'm so happy that you are celebrating my 70th birthday for me. And at such a fancy place. But is Robert okay with it? Did you get his permission? Of course. He sends his regards too, and I have a gift from him as well. I'll give it to you later. Oh, how wonderful. Jennifer, you really married a wonderful husband, didn't you? I can't thank Robert and his parents enough. Robert is my husband. He was actually planning to celebrate my mom's 70th birthday with us, but he had work he couldn't get out of, so we decided to do it another time. There's a lot to catch up on, but it's almost time for our reservation. We decided to continue our conversation inside the restaurant. Hey! I didn't hear about that. As my mom and I enter the restaurant, Sarah and Daniel are making a huge fuss at the entrance. They're ganging up on a female staff member, apparently trying to pick a fight. So, I'm terribly sorry, but our restaurant prioritizes customers with reservations, so if you don't have a reservation, we'll have to ask you to leave or wait. What? There's an empty table there, in the back, and over there. Just seat us at an empty table. We're customers, customers. I apologize. All the tables currently available are reserved for customers with reservations. Apparently, that couple didn't make a reservation. They seemed to know that this restaurant was popular, but they must have missed the part about reservations being prioritized. It's written in large, eye-catching red letters on the sign in front of the store, on social media, and even on the restaurant's website. It's a restaurant that's always fully booked with reservations, so there's no way they'd be smoothly guided inside if they showed up without a reservation. My mom and I approached them, partly to help the troubled staff member. Excuse me, I have a reservation for 8 p.m. under Johnson. Oh, yes. Ms. Johnson, 4-2, right? We've been expecting you. Right this way, please. When I spoke up, the female staff member who was being harassed looked relieved and smiled. She tried to guide us to a private room in the back in a practiced manner, but... Hey, wait a minute. What? You're prioritizing customers who came in after us? We're the customers who arrived first, That couple wouldn't let us pass quietly. I think the staff's explanation earlier covered everything, but ridiculously, they still don't seem to accept it. 2 male staff members hurry out from the back of the restaurant, looking flustered, but even then, Sarah and Daniel don't back down at all. Instead, they start glaring at my mom and me, their eyes trailing from the top of our heads to the tips of our toes. You should go to a restaurant more suited to your status, don't you think? Aren't you embarrassed to come to a high-end restaurant dressed so shabbily? Yeah, don't you know it's rude not to dress appropriately for the restaurant? Oh, wait, did you think that was dressing up? And today is your once-in-a-lifetime splurge or something? Give it up. Poor people will never understand the value of haute cuisine anyway. I had already confirmed in advance that this restaurant doesn't have a required dress code. I wonder if this couple came dressed in fancy suits and dresses without knowing that. Hey, restaurant staff. We're elite employees at Martinez Bank. We have lots of money. Between these poor people and us wealthy elites, who would you rather have as customers? Who can spend more money at your restaurant? You don't even have to think about it, right? Martinez Bank is a large bank with branches nationwide. Their headquarters is near this restaurant. They must work at that main branch. Just hearing that, they certainly sound elite, but their behavior is far from elite. The staff members exchanged troubled glances, but the staff member who first helped us tried her best to smile as she led us to the back. Ms. Johnson, please come this way. I apologize for any unpleasantness. No, we're fine. Yes, that's right. please don't worry about it. As we head towards the back, I can still hear Sarah's angry voice shouting, "Wait!" But we decide not to engage. If we ignore her, she'll probably give up eventually. I hope that's the case. My mom and I both respond with a smile to the staff member who apologizes profusely, true to her word. The staff at this restaurant have done nothing wrong. The private room we're led to is a calm space, gently illuminated by warm-colored lights. My mom and I sit across from each other with a table between us. A lot has happened before we got here, but we can finally take a breather. There sure are all kinds of people out there. I wonder if the staff will be okay. Yeah. If they cause too much of a scene, the staff might consider calling the police, so I think it'll be fine. But our celebration was disrupted, even though it's a special occasion. Hee, that doesn't really matter. She didn't seem particularly offended. My mom is always like this. She generally dislikes conflict and isn't the type to get angry easily. No matter what people say to her, she always settles things amicably. If she isn't in a bad mood, it's probably not a good idea to dwell on this topic too much. Today is a special celebration, after all. Before the food is brought out, I take 2 gifts out of my bag and hand them to my mom. Here. This is from me and Robert, and the other one is from the kids to their grandma. Oh my! To receive presents from Jennifer and her wonderful husband, and from my adorable grandchildren. I'm the happiest grandma in the world right now. Saying that, my mom's face breaks into a truly delighted smile as she accepts the 2 gifts. Seeing her like that, the one giving the presents ends up feeling even happier. So much so that the complicated feelings I had in my heart just a little while ago vanish completely. About 2 hours pass after that. My mom's and my stomachs are completely satisfied. As expected of a popular restaurant, not only was the taste excellent, but the appearance of the dishes was also magnificent. We ordered a course meal centered around seafood this time, but it makes me want to come back and try their meat course next time. As we're slowly savoring the dessert that was served last, I hear lively voices coming from outside the private room. Unbelievable! Normally, elites should be given top priority, right? I was looking forward to this high-end restaurant, but prioritizing poor people over us put me in the worst mood. It was the troublesome couple from before. Apparently, a table finally opened up for them. The footsteps pass by the private room we're in and seem to enter the one next to us. If you don't want a scathing review, hurry up and bring out the food. Menu? You decide that for us. We elite customers have been kept waiting for so long. It's only common sense to make an apology dish and bring it out. Even though it's a private room, I can clearly hear Sarah's angry voice since it's the room next door. However, I don't hear the voices of the staff or Daniel at all. Just from that, I can tell how loudly she must be yelling. This ruins the pleasant mood. Maybe we should finish our dessert quickly and go home. Just as I'm about to say that to my mom, I hear footsteps again. Footsteps that seem to be in a hurry. I knew it! You were here! You poor mother and daughter! How dare you cut in line earlier? Well, what? Cut in line? We had a reservation, so... It was Sarah. She rudely kicks over the screen at the entrance of the private room, folds her arms in front of her chest, and looks around the interior. Then, just like earlier, she laughs through her nose with a ha! Quite an expensive-looking private room. No wonder you're spending money on things beyond your means, working yourself to the bone until you look so haggard. Sarah calls herself an elite over and over, so she must have a lot of pride. That's probably why she can't stand the fact that we, who look shabby and poor in her eyes, got to enjoy our meal at this restaurant before her. So much so that she had to come all the way here just to make a snide remark. The staff tries to admonish Sarah, but Daniel dismisses it with a, "Hey, hold on a sec. If we stay at the restaurant any longer, we'll only cause more trouble for them. We only have dessert left anyway, so maybe we should eat quickly and leave early." Young lady, you may certainly be an elite, but it's better not to loudly proclaim where you work. Huh? What, are you so dazzled by my elite status that you can't help but realize how shabby you are? No, that's not it. You may be too young to think deeply about it, but what you're doing is... Before my mom can finish her sentence, Sarah snatches a glass from a nearby staff member's tray and, unbelievably, throws its contents at her. The steaming liquid is whiskey, a hot toddy.
Hot. Are you okay?
I hurriedly stand up with a napkin in hand and rush to her side. The hot whiskey soaks my mom's shoulders, chest, and upper arms, and my mom lets out a scream-like cry as she takes off her suit jacket and pulls up her dress shirt. The presents we sent for her 70th birthday celebration, even though they're wrapped, are completely drenched. Seeing that, Sarah and Daniel. Whiskey is supposed to have an exorcising effect. Isn't that great? The god of poverty that's been haunting you is probably gone now, right? You should be thanking me. There's always boomers who love to lecture young people like us. I can't tell what her skin looks like since she can't take off her shirt, but the part peeking out from under her rolled-up sleeves is bright red. Unable to suppress my rising anger, I glare at the couple who are laughing gleefully. Then Sarah laughs mockingly again. Hee hee, and spits out. Food tastes bad when boomers are around. Go home. At her unbelievably horrible words and actions, I'm about to raise my voice in anger, but my mom's hand stops me. My mom doesn't say anything more. She only mutters a single phrase. Maybe we should go home. Hearing that mutter, both Sarah and Daniel point at my mom and laugh loudly. However, my mom doesn't even engage with that, quickly gathers her things, slips past the two of them, and leaves the private room. Excuse me. The bill, please. I hurriedly chase after her. Ahead, I see the staff members turning pale at the sight of my mom completely drenched. Behind me, I can still hear Sarah and Daniel's grating laughter. But I know. The more good-natured someone usually is, the more terrifying they are when they get angry, to the point where it's no joke. My mom was no exception to that. The next day, as I'm working while holding complicated feelings about last night's commotion, a colleague nurse comes to call me. Miss Johnson, the doctors are asking for you.
Huh? Me? Did I mess something up?
I'm having trouble switching gears today, so maybe I made a mistake. But my colleague shakes her head and blinks in confusion. No, it doesn't seem to be anything like that. Apparently, a guest is here, and the hospital director has been called too. The hospital director? Okay, I'll go check it out. Though I raise a question mark, I leave things there to my colleague and head to the reception room in the back of the hospital. If there's a visitor, they're usually dealt with in the reception room. Then, I see various doctors gathered around the reception room, and there's an unsettling atmosphere. Oh, Miss Johnson, we've been waiting for you. Come on in.
Well, what happened?
The CEO of Martinez Bank is here, saying he has something to discuss with you. Martinez Bank. Just hearing that name, complicated feelings seep into my heart again. However, if the CEO is here, last night's incident must have already been reported. Watched by the various doctors, I open the door to the reception room and step inside. Inside, there's a man who seems to be the CEO of Martinez Bank and the couple from last night. The latter two have extremely awkward expressions. Hospital director, what's all the fuss about? After confirming their presence, I call out to the hospital director. Then, well, who knows? In the middle of this busy time, they suddenly barged in. I only contacted them to cancel my bank account, though. The hospital director, my mom, replies calmly.
No way. The old lady from yesterday. No, that woman is actually the hospital director of the general hospital. Last night, I am truly sorry.
That's right. My mom is the hospital director of Williams General Hospital. The reason my mom and I are so exhausted after work is that we're spending such busy days. We hardly have the time to care about our appearance. Last night was supposed to be a 70th birthday celebration as well as my moment of peace. But it was ruined in the worst way possible. I could painfully understand my mom's feelings when she contacted them to cancel her bank account.
Ms. Jones, I am deeply sorry for this incident. It was my lack of management.
Then, Mr. Davis, the CEO of Martinez Bank, apologizes profusely. Honestly, even if someone who wasn't involved in last night's incident apologizes, it doesn't make me feel any better. That wasn't a work-related issue, but a commotion caused by individuals. My mom seems to feel the same way, and her profile shows none of her usual gentle demeanor, only coldness. But there's clear anger in her eyes, piercing straight through Daniel and Sarah behind Mr. Davis, not him.
Young lady, do you understand the meaning of what I said yesterday? Huh?
Caught off guard by the sudden question, Sarah lets out an unpleasant voice either because she wasn't paying attention or because she hasn't reflected. Hearing that, Mr. Davis and Daniel put their raised index fingers to their lips, desperately trying to silence Sarah.
Martinez Bank is a large bank with branches nationwide, so you probably couldn't resist boasting about working at the headquarters. But if it becomes known that they employ someone with poor conduct like you, it will lead to a decline in the bank's image. Wah! In fact, thanks to you too, I've decided to cancel my Martinez Bank account. If you hadn't loudly proclaimed where you work, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out.
At my mom's barrage of words, Sarah's face turns bright red with anger. She waves her fists in rage, but Daniel, in contrast to Sarah, is turning pale as he tries to calm her down.
Hurry up and apologize! CEO, this is terrible. Normally, shouldn't you be protecting your employees in a situation like this? Listening only to the other side's story and unilaterally treating me as the villain. You fool! You even injured Ms. Jones, and you still claim you did nothing wrong?
My mom's skin, which had hot toddy whiskey thrown on it, was burned, though not severely. Even now, fresh bandages peek out from her neck and wrists, not hidden by her white coat.
But these two cut in line, you know? Sure, I admit it was wrong of me to get physical, but cutting in line is.
Still, Sarah insists on her innocence. Next to her, Daniel, still pale, is flustered.
Even though you simply didn't make a reservation, you insist that we cut in line. In that case, shall we contact the restaurant from last night and have them confirm whether we had a reservation? If Mr. Davis sees that, I think he'll understand which one of us is being absurd. Ugh.
Sarah understands it clearly in her head. That she and Daniel, who didn't make a reservation, are 100% at fault. But what prevents her from admitting it is probably the pride within Sarah that's far higher than any mountain around.
Why do I have to apologize to these people? Just because you're doctors doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty. Hey! Sarah, if you're making the CEO apologize like this, you must be a fairly big customer. But we have plenty of famous corporate clients. Losing one or two won't be much of a blow.
At Sarah's words, stubbornly refusing to apologize, the air in the room felt like it froze. After a few beats of silence, my mom glances at me for my moment. You heard her, Jennifer. What will you do?
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, but since it doesn't seem like it'll be much of a blow, I think I'll cancel my bank account too. Let's see. The hospital director and I each have bank accounts of about $5 billion, so it would be around $10 billion total, right?
At my words, Sarah is shocked, her face turning pale. I can see the corners of her mouth twitching slightly.
$10 billion? Why do you have that much money?
The reason we have that much money is due to the multiple life insurance policies my dad had taken out in case something happened to him. The hospital director of Williams General Hospital was originally my dad. In other words, both of my parents are doctors. Because Dad had taken out multiple life insurance policies while he was alive, after his death, my mom and I received more money than we could spend in a lifetime. Banks profit by taking the money deposited by many customers and lending it out to others. Even if it's the main branch, what would happen if $10 billion suddenly left? It's not hard to imagine, even without thinking too deeply. Sarah looks like she can barely stand, taking a few steps back. She finally seems to understand the gravity of the situation. Clearly too late.
Come on, Sarah. Apologize. Hurry up and apologize.
Daniel is already more than half in tears. However, when Daniel urges Sarah to apologize, she grabs both of his shoulders and confronts him.
When you get down to it, it's your fault. If you hadn't suggested going to that restaurant, this wouldn't have happened. Daniel, you apologize deeply or whatever, and make amends. I already apologized. Besides, the one who was always nagging about wanting to try that restaurant was you, Sarah. Then why was it yesterday? Why didn't you make a reservation? You can't even perfectly escort a girl, you're the worst. If you're going to be a husband, you should properly protect your wife, you incompetent fool.
Then they start blaming each other. I don't know if Daniel understood the gravity of the situation when he came here, or if he's simply timid. I can't tell which, but at least he offered words of apology. Whether we forgive him or not is a separate matter. But from Sarah, I haven't received a single proper apology. In everything leading up to this point, she didn't even show a hint of feeling sorry. I absolutely cannot forgive that.
Enough already!
Mr. Davis shouts angrily, seeing the two of them start arguing at a place they came to apologize. They're both surprised by that, flinching their shoulders and shutting up.
Do you understand the situation you're in? Do you comprehend why you came here? If you were sincerely and wholeheartedly apologizing, that would be one thing, but to engage in such an unsightly dispute.
But CEO, I'm not at fault. The one responsible for this incident is Daniel. I was just invited to dinner by him, and…
Don't be ridiculous! The one who barged into another private room to make snide remarks and poured whiskey on the hospital director was all you, Sarah.
Even though they seemed so close last night, apparently there was no deep trust or affection there. If they truly cared for each other, normally one of them would cleanly take responsibility. But all they're doing now is just shifting the blame for their own wrongdoings onto each other. There wasn't even a shred of affection to be seen.
Enough! This is a serious matter concerning trust. I can't deal with people who cause such a commotion outside any longer. You both are fired.
Fired? No way! Finally, Mr. Davis's anger seems to have exploded. Sarah and Daniel are literally left speechless, only able to open their mouths. My mom, who had been watching the series of exchanges, sighs as if tired, then lifts the hem of her white coat to reveal her bandaged arm. I went to another hospital this morning to get examined and obtain a medical certificate. You're such a child. If I had this hospital issue the certificate, I might be accused of trying to frame you. We will be filing a police report for this incident, so… Sarah, keep that in mind. Police report.
Well, what's that?
Sarah's action of throwing whiskey and causing burns is a clear case of assault. But the hospital director, no, my mom, if she had seen even a hint of remorse in Sarah or a sincere apology, I don't think she would have gone this far. My mom is generally a gentle person. But Sarah stubbornly refused to admit she was wrong, and even when cornered like that, she didn't show a single sign of remorse. Like me, my mom probably couldn't forgive that. At the ominous words police and police report, Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she opens and closes her mouth. She seems to be trying to say something, but the words won't come out. Just so you know, we won't agree to a settlement.
Huh?
Sarah doesn't seem to understand what that means, but my mom apparently has no desire to talk further. She stands up from her chair and immediately leaves the reception room. Jennifer, I'm truly sorry about this. I don't know how to apologize. No, Mr. Davis has nothing to apologize for. And even though my mom said that, I don't think she'll actually go through with canceling the bank account, so please don't worry. Mr. Davis sighs as if tired, walks up to me, and apologizes. I hurriedly shake my head, lowering my voice so Sarah and the others can't hear the second half. Then, clear relief seeps into his face.
Hey, Daniel, what's the police? What's a police report? Did I do something that bad? How should I know? I'm done with you. Whatever happens to you is none of my business.
No.
Don't say that. Hey, what should I do? Hey, I'm talking to you.
Fired and abandoned even by Daniel, Sarah sinks to the floor powerlessly. All right, I think we're done here. The hospital isn't free, so please leave soon.
Wait. Call the hospital director. Call her one more time. I'll apologize properly. I'll give a deep apology or whatever.
As I approach Sarah to ask her to leave, she clings to me. Her face is desperate. If she was going to panic this much now, she should have just apologized meekly from the start. I let out a small sigh and shake my head. Unfortunately, the hospital director is not here for free.
She's in a position where she's so busy every day to the point of exhaustion that Sarah would blurt out that she looks shabby. Sarah, you even spat out such abuse.
When I repeat the words said at the restaurant last night, Sarah makes an awkward expression. Reacting to that, Mr. Davis's anger, which had settled down once, begins to build up again.
We're in a position where people's lives are entrusted to us. We do get exhausted. There are so many times where a minute or a second can mean life or death. I can't afford to care that much about ourselves. But I've never once thought I looked shabby. That's just because I didn't know your occupation. It just slipped out. I didn't mean any harm. So you think it's okay to mock non-medical professionals as shabby? I do think Sarah should be prosecuted after all. She's still young. If she reflects in prison, she might gain some common sense.
Even if a police report is submitted, if there's no prosecution, it won't result in a criminal record. Also, if a settlement is reached, cases often end up not being prosecuted. However, my mom has already declared she won't agree to a settlement. If the victim doesn't agree to a settlement, the criminal penalty can't be reduced, and there's a high probability of prosecution. In the first place, my mom and I have more than enough money, so even if we're offered settlement money, it won't lead to us being satisfied. There are times when settlement money won't be accepted, but I have no obligation to tell Sarah that.
No, I don't want to go to prison. Do something, I'll apologize.
Sarah says that and cries loudly, but Mr. Davis, Daniel, and no one stood by Sarah's side. The one I want to stand by isn't someone with no common sense like her. Afterwards, my mom formally filed a police report. Sarah's dad apparently runs a company as the president, and she cried to him. But not only did she not receive help, she got scolded harshly. Why? Because Sarah's dad is one of my mom's patients.
How could you do that to Ms. Jones?
He was furious, and I heard that was the trigger for her family cutting ties with her. Sarah and Daniel were fired from Martinez Bank as declared at the hospital, and the two apparently broke up. Given how ugly their blame shifting was, it's only natural. After the police report was accepted, I heard rumors that Sarah was arrested. My mom's case isn't that major of an incident. So even if a police report was filed, it was unclear if the police would take action. Nevertheless, the reason it led to an arrest is because, appallingly, Sarah had frequently caused similar problematic behavior elsewhere. Complaining about unsatisfactory service at stores until she was satisfied, throwing tea at others, and so on. As police reports piled up, the police seemed to take action, unable to overlook it. Naturally, she was prosecuted and found guilty at trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison without suspension of execution. Sarah had boasted so proudly about being an elite, but now that this has happened, she can no longer be an elite. No one will see Sarah that way anymore. Fired from her job, dumped by her boyfriend, and abandoned by her family, who knows how Sarah will live after serving her sentence? I was curious, but I quickly stopped thinking about it. It's not my business. This time, I probably won't get involved with her ever again.
Welcome. Ms. Johnson, we've been expecting you.
Greeted by the cheerful staff's voice, we step inside the restaurant. Today, we've come back to that high-end restaurant to redo the 70th birthday celebration that was ruined that day. Of course, with a proper reservation. We went to various stores since morning, buying flowers for the occasion and repurchasing the presents that were drenched in alcohol. Apparently, the reason my mom was so angry that time wasn't because she got burned, but because our presents were ruined.
I'm so happy to be able to come eat with Jennifer again like this.
That celebration was ruined that day, so let's enjoy today even more than back then.
Hee, a lot happened that time, but since we get to enjoy both the seafood and meat courses as a result, let's consider it a good thing.
Last time was the seafood course, but today it's the meat course. Remembering that commotion still fills me with irritation, but hearing my mom's words, those complicated feelings quickly fade. I think she is truly amazing. Even emotional shifts that are difficult for me, she does them so easily like this. We toast in front of the dishes brought to us. That time, we celebrated before her birthday because our schedules weren't likely to align, but today is genuinely my mom's birthday. My mom, now 70, will retire as hospital director next year. It's often said that there's no retirement age for medical professions, but precisely because it's a job where people's lives and health are entrusted. My mom says mistakes are never allowed. That's why she wants to step down from the position of hospital director before her judgment declines with age, leading to a serious mistake, and entrust it to the next generation.
How about going to a trip after retiring? You should do lots of things you couldn't before due to lack of time. I bet there are plenty, right?
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll think about it. But I'm more than happy enough as I am now. I was really devastated when I lost my husband, but thanks to you, Jennifer, I was able to recover. You are happy, and you cherish me like this. I'm truly happy. My mom, smiling as she says that, looked delighted and truly happy, just as she said. Seeing my mom like that, I start feeling happy too.